Good afternoon. First, today we would like to acknowledge Remembrance Day. We'd like to acknowledge all of those who gave their lives so our country can be what it is today. We may be
Mm-hmm.
immigrants, but we are fortunate to be able to live in this country that is the land of the free.
Yeah.
Um, for those who have, for those veterans who have traumatic brain injuries and post-traumatic stress disorder, which causes a lot of depression and suicides. We would like to thank you for your service and your sacrifice, and we hope that you can receive the assistance that you need.
Yes. Yeah. Um, the you talk about assistance, the Veterans Affairs office in Canada here.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a Hamilton district, and that offers a lot of help to our veterans. And I don't know if you're listening and you're not sure where to get help. You know, the office offers a wide variety of services, programs to assist with injury or, just during transition from military to civilian life, allowances, benefits, income support payments, rehabilitation, healthcare benefits, and also funding for a long-term care, those types of needs. So get in touch with the
Housing.
Veterans
Mm-hmm.
Affairs office, if you need that kind of help. Like, please don't suffer in
Thank
silence.
you, Jennifer.
There's so much
Yes.
help out there. Yeah,
Yes. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for letting us for sharing that information.
We'll be
yeah.
putting that link in the description down below,
Okay.
everyone,
Wonderful.
for whoever needs those resources.
Okay.
And we'll be providing
So
cross Canada wide.
Awesome. Awesome.
we will be just we have had our technical specialist here for several months, not even knowing that she was also a survivor. So
Yeah.
today we are going to discuss with her journey.
Yes.
It's very interesting how, since I've had the stroke, I find that I've met so many people that have gone through so many challenges.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like we gravitate towards one another, because I did
Mm-hmm.
not know Elisha. Elisha responded to an ad of mine, and to find out that she had also been through some struggles um, was very interesting to me.
Yeah.
So we'd like her to share her story.
Yeah.
So go
Absolutely.
ahead, Elisha.
Thank you. Yeah, so most of you see me behind the conversations with in the Den logo, and previous to that, my own business logo. Yeah, so one of the things I really wanted to talk about today, and it usually come as a surprise, being someone who works in tech, most often folks who do video editing, do sound editing, usually don't have the kind of hearing loss that I have. They usually aren't people who do the kind of advocacy work that I do in my mental health business, because it can really take a lot out of you. It can
Mm-hmm.
be such an effect on our, not, of course, not only ability to hear, with sensorineural hearing loss, when especially when that's congenital. um, it affects
Can you
it.
so
Alicia,
can you
tell us
can you
what. Alicia, tell us what is it called?
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
there's
was
a
just about to say
diagnosis for
yes.
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a sensorineural hearing loss, which means it's a hearing loss that can't be reversed.
Okay,
Um,
so this began happening
yeah.
approximately
So
when?
it's funny because a lot of kids have a lisp. It's common. We hear it. They say
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
mm, they have speech impediments, and it's absolutely normalized. But for me, because there was there was no deficit, or no deficit that people could really notice that I wasn't hearing, it went on for a while. And then around the fifth grade, so around age 10, it
Mm-hmm.
started to become worse.
Okay.
And like, people would notice it when I said words like swim or swimming or three, and it got progressively more challenging. Um, so for me, even at that age, I didn't really have a huge lot of direction at home for my family. So I began to get involved in theater. And the teacher who supervised it at school, she could kind of notice that, oh, she's
There were certain
feeling
words that you
frustrated.
struggled with. Yes.
Yeah, and really was my advocate in helping me figure out getting some of those resources that I needed.
Okay. And so what did you then have to do?
Yeah, so it was actually a few years before my parents would take me to the doctor and get it checked out. But the first person I saw was a speech therapist. So at that age, I mean, you're
Okay.
concerned with recess. You're concerned with seeing your friends at recess or at lunch or whatever it is. And I would go to speech therapy in the school, which wasn't very frequent. And I began to work on it and work on it. And it got better for a while, but when you start high school, those services aren't there. So in um, about the 11th grade, so it's now been about 5, 6 years, I saw an ENT, so an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and was able to get that diagnosis. And at first they weren't sure because it's not something that usually happens suddenly. So they went back, they took a very detailed history, a lot of tests to check things like ear pressure, to
Mm.
CT, things like CT scans to make sure it wasn't from a head injury, um, and then a lot of audiology tests to really make sure and corroborate that information, that it made sense to them that, hey, this is the diagnosis.
Okay.
Um,
So you obviously must have when you went to the audiologist. I presume that they did a lot of testing on your physical ear
mhm, yep. Um,
and did not find any injury in your ear inside your ear.
Nope. So that's how we found out it was something I was born with, and it
Oh,
just
okay.
got worse over time. But of course, when you're born in a hospital, unless it's like an impairment that you can't hear anything at all, it often actually goes undiagnosed. It gets absolutely missed. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. You're looking
So can I
for
ask,
physical.
Ellie,
mhm.
you were how how did you exist? Because you were born with it. Um, you did not know that you were not hearing well. You could not have known that because you had no form of reference.
Yeah.
You didn't
Uh,
have a reference point. But how was people around you reacting that made you understand that something's not right? Like how was people reacting?
yeah. I knew something wasn't right with my speech. I just had this awareness that it was different, but I didn't actually know I couldn't hear well until it got to that 10 years of
Yeah.
age
So
point.
you were 10, 11. Yeah.
And it was hard to socialize. I mean, there were things that people would be like, "Oh, don't you hear it? Don't you hear that? Or didn't you hear that? Oh, you're just not paying attention." And I was paying attention. I was working
Hmm.
really hard, and I found even from an early age, I was really engrossed in books. It was much easier for me to read a book than
Hmm.
put in the energy and the strain in socializing.
Okay.
It
But
was
what
just
about watching
tiring.
television?
Television, I loved going to my grandparents' house because there were subtitles. I
Ah,
loved it, and I didn't know why I loved it. I just thought it was because I liked to read, and that was, my way of learning, as teachers would say. But television, I think I didn't really like kid shows, like, even when I was a kid, like, I preferred things that were a little bit older because the voices were deeper.
Oh, okay.
Like
and probably because like at your grandparents' house, you have the subtitles because I have a hearing impairment that
mhm,
is after stroke. And so I always have subtitles on, always, always, always. I and so people around me that know me well know, okay, if you want to watch a movie with me, you better put subtitles on, or else I'll be getting up several times during the movie because I can't hear properly. So I'm disinterested, you
yeah,
know?
Okay.
And so tell me about your parents because
mhm,
because as a child you would not have known how to advocate for yourself because you don't know that there's something medically wrong. You just know as time goes on, you know that something is not right. But your parents are watching you and they are relating to the normal world. What are they noticing that's different about you and other kids your age?
Honestly, they just thought, maybe she's just not paying attention. Why aren't you listening to me? Why are you not paying attention? And to most parents, that's normal kid stuff. Like, do we know a kid that listens to their parents all the time?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So to them,
I want to
they,
meet that child.
I'd love to meet that child. But they, yeah, they thought it was normal childhood behavior. And I was the firstborn, and my younger brother has severe autism, so he's nonverbal. Um, so yeah, didn't have any other really children to relate to. I mean, I had some friends. Academically, I was doing well. There wasn't anything that, they felt that they had to worry about. They just thought, oh, it's a list that won't go away and we can't afford speech therapy. Like, I think that was their mentality.
So when you got diagnosed,
Mhm.
what were the options that they gave you as far as
So when I got diagnosed,
assistance?
yeah, when I got diagnosed, they told me a hearing aid is basically a Band-Aid. Like, there's nothing surgical with sensorineural loss. There's no surgical procedure that can be done. There's no tubes in the ears. There's absolutely nothing. So the way it's treated is, because what'll happen too is with a lot of folks with sensorineural loss, they'll get a keratin buildup. So that's a buildup of hair, dead skin, wax, inside the ear. So that was kind of a way to manage it so it wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
further blockages. Then I started college and I was like, I gotta go to a different ENT. Like, maybe another one has another opinion. So she told me to try hearing aids, and
Okay.
I couldn't afford both. So I got one for my right ear, which is actually these days they're fairly even in how bad they are. But that time my right ear was the absolute worst one. And everything was too much. It was so overwhelming.
Oh, okay.
And even when I wear both, like now as years have progressed and it's gotten worse, even when I wear both now, and especially with COVID, can I just say, like, for a lot of folks I know who have hearing loss, we're not wearing our hearing aids in our house because we're by ourselves, we're with our family. It doesn't
That's
really matter. We're not going anywhere. Um,
yes.
but then when I go outside, like if I go to the store or anything like that,
You
I'm
forget that you don't have your hearing aid on.
I put them, yeah, when I'm at home, I don't, but when I go to the store, I put them on so I can hear if like anyone's calling me or, someone's telling me I'm going down the wrong aisle or something, so I can hear instructions too, especially when we were having to wait in those long lines. It was so loud. I was like, why do people shuffle their feet? Why do
Okay,
people tap their hands?
do
And
you find that you have a lot of overstimulation when you have your hearing aid on?
yeah, for me, I do, especially when I don't wear them continuously. But when I'm going out every day or when I'm working out of the home every day,
Mm-hmm.
I readjust and I get used to it again. Um, so yeah, it can be challenging to have periods of,
Okay, well, I
So this
mean,
is how, but so COVID affects, it sort of adds to the problem because with the 7, or 10 months of, not being able to properly wear the device that actually helps with your handicap,
Mhm.
now it's sort of like a step back because
Yeah, I mean, and I
it,
can wear them in the house, but do I really want to hear myself tapping at my keys all day? And
yeah.
I'm at home, so I have three other people in my house. If I
Yeah.
put my earphones in, like, they don't have to listen in to all these conversations that I'm having,
Yeah.
especially since some of the work I do is
oh, okay, so
confidential.
when you have your hearing aid, you can still wear your headphones.
I can't.
You
No.
cannot. Okay.
Yeah.
That is difficult though, because it means that you are confined to being a one task person.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the times. I mean, what will happen is you gotta take off if I'm getting a phone call, and it's something that's really important and I need to hear. I either have to take my earphones out of my laptop and put them in my phone so I can hear the conversation there, or I need to leave my earphones in my laptop and put my hearing aids in. Previously, I could connect them to my phone, but the phone I have now is not compatible. And when I bought my phone, I was like, I'm sure every phone company is up to date. I had a Samsung
Yeah.
before. I got
Yeah.
I got a Samsung now. It'll work. It doesn't have that compatibility because now my hearing aids are seen by the system, like the phone system, as being too old. And not
Yeah.
everyone has $8,000 to just, put out there.
Well, the one thing I can say is I'm very proud of you for still pursuing your career, the things that you do,
Thank you.
and not allowing it to hold you back from being you.
Yeah.
Because I know you do a lot of things in the community, and I know you do a lot of things online, meetings and such. So I'm very proud of you for continuing to pursue all your goals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely proud of you, Alicia. Definitely
Thank
proud of you.
you.
But tell me this, how, with you having like, I know how a hearing loss affects me socially, but
Mhm.
how does it affect you socially?
I do not like being in groups of too many people. 'Cause you know what happens when you're with your girlfriends or all your friends, and let's say they bring their partners and we're all together and everyone starts talking. Everyone's so excited to see each other. We're sitting at a restaurant, we're sitting at a booth.
Mm.
I try, and this is a great tip from the first ENT I saw. He has told me try sitting in a booth because it's less in the open space. Sit to the one that's the back to the wall, and then and my friends hate it. They're like, hmm, well, we could sit over here, we could sit over here, or we could sit over there. And we're like looking for the booths in in like a
Mm.
food court, so they know I can hear them. You know what? Like things like when I lived in Toronto, going to the Eden Center would drive me mad. You're shopping, you're with maybe one or two
Oh,
friends, you go for coffee, and there is so much noise that I can't even hear the overlap.
yeah.
Like one time I couldn't even focus on my friend because the people like next to me, they were talking about their divorce and I heard everything. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, I can't focus. And she's like, I can't even hear that. She was like, I can't even hear that. And I couldn't even hear her say, I can't even hear that. But I could
And,
hear
and that's
that.
Yeah.
kind of what Jennifer had described as an invisible disability.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that's beautiful about my hearing loss, Alicia, is that I have friends and family who actually walk into a restaurant
Mhm.
and they look around, and if there isn't that wall that can buffer my hearing so I can hear, and if there isn't that spot where I can see everybody to my right, I have friends and family that goes, do you want to leave and find somewhere else? And it's a beautiful thing because honestly, I don't know that many people have that opportunity, but I have one friend, especially when I go out with her, and we
Mhm.
would walk into a restaurant, and if there isn't a booth and there isn't a place where I can place everybody to my right, she simply looks at me, not being offensive. She goes, would you like to find somewhere else so that we can eat? And I feel loved and I feel valued when people do that
These
to me.
are
Like last
places
night,
that you go to on a regular basis.
not really. It's just any place. Like it's just any place I go. If we decide, because I don't want to limit myself to, going to just certain restaurants, and I
Yeah.
don't want to limit myself to only going to restaurants if I've made reservations. I like to be able to show up and say, "Hey, I'm here. I
Me
like to
too.
eat now," and
Yeah.
so. I have the opportunity to say, this is not working for me. I'll go somewhere else. And my friends and family that really love me, they get that. However, there's a large section of my friends and family that don't know this about me. And so they don't understand that and they're
Mhm.
not able to offer it to me. And that can be very, very frustrating. And I think, Alicia, you probably find that it's very limiting.
Yeah.
It's just,
And sometimes
you're
you
much
don't have a
better than,
choice, right? I mean,
yeah,
if you're at a mall in the food court, what are you gonna do? Ask the other person to move?
yeah,
No, like one friend, she hates sitting at the front of the movie theater, hates it, but she'll do it for me.
Yes.
Even though it makes her feel slightly nauseous, she'll
Yeah.
sit closer to the front of the movie theater so I can hear and be effective. Or she'll go to a movie that has subtitles, even though like English isn't her first language. So it can be distracting for her.
Mhm.
And I have some friends who will do those things. And just like what Jennifer, you're saying, some just don't get it. I have family that doesn't get it or doesn't realize how bad it is because,
Yeah.
I'm able to hear most things. Or things like when you go out, I find in social situations, sometimes friends have to tell me what's going on. Like, hey, there's an alarm beeping really loud, or
Yeah.
there's a lot of mosquitoes, like in crickets, like,
Yeah.
or there's a bee's nest over there. I can hear them buzzing. And I'm like, I can see that. I can
I
probably, if I
used to
looked
find
up,
I
I can
never
see it,
know.
but they hear it first.
Do you find that when you're walking down paths and there's cyclists, someone has to tell you that they've rung the bell?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a cyclist is about to, or
Yeah.
even
I
cars passing
don't
as
hear
you're
them.
walking. Yeah, I don't hear them either. And so it's very hard. My husband was so wonderful with that because all he had to do is he would push and tug me. So if there's a cyclist, he'd grab my arm and he'd pull me to, and I knew enough. So when he pulls me to the left, I just go. When he pushes me
Yeah.
to the right, I just go because I know he's warning something
Yep.
that's coming up behind me that I don't know.
Yeah.
So I just follow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I have a couple of people
at
like
least
path
you're
partners.
young. But you are younger than me, and that is hard. Like you can't go to parties. You
Party.
can't go to parties with loud music. You can't go to parties where everybody's talking at once. You
Yeah.
can't go to restaurants where everybody's talking at once. You are very, very limited with your hearing loss. And
Yeah.
remind us again, what is it called again?
It's a sensorineural hearing loss, so that means it,
Say it again, please. Would you say it slowly for me?
yeah,
Again,
sensorineural hearing loss. So
neural hearing loss.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
and
my question is
mhm,
what is this going to be is this something that's progressive?
yeah. So it can get worse. Each of my hearing tests have been so. I'm quite lucky that at first it was the right ear that was significantly worse than my left ear. But over the years, the left ear has caught up to the right one, and
Okay.
it's still progressing in basically a downward spiral of my ability to hear is just slightly less. I remember one of the things they do at the audiologist, they give you all these words and it's muffled. And one of the words seeing the same audiologist for a while now, I know his words. I know what the words are. My brain knows. But he was saying one of them, and it was a common word. He told me later it was baseball. Did not hear it. And that should be easier because of the B's. The B sound is very easy to resonate.
Yeah.
But and the L's too can be quite easy to hear. Couldn't hear it for the life of me, or things like
Mhm.
and I find certain voices are harder. I mean, even with education, like school stuff, if there's a video and it doesn't have subtitles and the person is like high pitched, I'm out. I'm not gonna listen to
Are
it.
you but you can ask for an accommodation, can you not?
Yeah, so those accommodations are really hard to get unless you're in a significant place with your hearing loss, or that there's an actual risk of damaging your education because there's things like I had an instructor tell me if you get the accommodation, what's going to happen is we're going to have to give you less time on the test, or we're going to have to give you less time to do this, because part of that accommodation structure they have set up is sending out PowerPoints beforehand, or they'll send in different opportunities. But I've had, when we were back in person with videos, they would play the video up on the screen for me, even with hearing aids then at that time, it was like minuscule volume. And they're like, oh, we won't put it too loud. There's a class next door running an exam. There's not much that can be done a lot of the time. And then a lot of teachers too are really uncomfortable wearing the microphone piece, which I do have, it is an option. And it just isn't they don't want to wear it. They don't want to feel like they're being
I don't
recorded.
think that should be an option.
Yeah. And it is to a lot of, you know what? It's not even just older professors. Sometimes when I talk to people about this, they're like, oh, they must be so old, so outdated. It's sometimes younger ones too who are like, do you really need that? Are you just using this as a way to get more
Yes, I
time?
do.
Like,
Yes, I do.
yeah.
Elisha, let me ask you this. If you had to do over high school and college, you did college or university?
So I did college. I'm actually doing more post-secondary now, and I did some university too through Oxford University and did a certificate in art history. So I've done some university, some college.
Okay. What do you want the educational system to hear today? Like, what do you want profs and teachers to hear today from you who are struggling, who is struggling through this handicap, and you have people that have perfect pitch hearing who are teaching, who are trying to teach you, but they refuse to meet you halfway because
Yeah.
it's too cumbersome, it is too much. What do you want to say to those people?
I want to tell them to build it into your curriculum. Pretend
good.
everything you're doing is if someone is hearing impaired. That way it's not an extra thing. It's
Yeah.
not extra for you to go now look for a video with subtitles on the same topic. You've already put in a video with subtitles into your topic. So if you do it to begin with, you're now not doing 2 rounds of work. Maybe you start giving every student a copy of your PowerPoint, because why not? What does that cost you? You're making the PowerPoint anyway. And do you know how many other students could benefit from it who prefer to read or might be distracted with
Because they
something that's
learn
going on at
differently.
home?
There may be people who are visual learners.
Yeah, people who are visual learners. I mean, and I definitely think as well, I've had friends who'll come out of a class and be like, I just really didn't get that. I wish I could see that PowerPoint. I wish I could just, go through X, Y, and Z again. Especially what I have found helpful is a lot of universities. So over the summer, I just finished a neuroscience course with Harvard through their continuing education stream. And what I found really helpful is they do transcriptions of the video and they're accurate. And they'll say things like, instead of even just saying speaker one or speaker two, they'll have speaker one and then they have that person's name. They're really making an effort to humanize it. So when you are giving things, humanize it. Like, let us know what's going on. Let us in on the joke. Do you know how many subtitles they don't put when someone's laughing? When someone is telling a joke, like when I'm reading it, it might not sound funny because there's no intonation there. So
Yeah.
send us the video and send us a transcript because it's not going to make a lot of sense otherwise.
The other place I know has an excellent student accessibility program is McMaster University. And I know that because I spent 6 years with my daughter going through university, and I would be in that student council office. I looked at the material, I looked at the accommodations, and McMaster University here in Hamilton, Ontario, they have such an amazing accessibility program. It's an entire department, and it doesn't matter what your handicap cap is. Their whole premise is we want you to succeed because we think we want you to succeed, because if you succeed, that means we have succeeded as a university. And so the accommodations are off the charts. I mean, Candace is my daughter Candace. She is this girl suffers with different things, but she graduated 6 years later, and she graduated with a certificate in French and a psychology degree. That would not have been possible if McMaster University did not come alongside her and held both of her arms up when she was falling. And I mean, we had counselors that would say to her, I sat in counseling sessions and had counselors say, you know what? And I say to them, what do you recommend at this point? She's really, this is what's happening. This is what's happening medically. This is what's happening physically to her. What do you recommend? And I had counselors say, I recommend taking the next semester off.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is unheard of. That is unheard of. And we always went with I always and they always, it was always left to her. She had to make that final decision. But I would support her. The counselor would support her and said, I recommend taking the next semester off and getting well and finding out which medication works for you.
Mhm.
I mean, we really need more of these in our school system.
Yeah.
I think Canada has huge room for improvement where it comes to accessibility in teaching, in our colleges, in our universities, in our schools. But I'm happy to hear you share from your experience and go, you know what, this is what would help me. This is what I
Yeah.
would help. Even the people that are not hearing impaired, they're saying,
Mhm.
I didn't get that.
Yeah. You know what I find Mohawk has been really amazing, because that's where I'm doing my teaching and adult learner certificate and my children's mental health certificate. And I find they have a lot of different ways of doing things. And I have one course, right now I have 1 out of 3 where it's just unavoidable to they have a pronunciation test. So I have a lisp. I also have to make sure I'm listening to all those words beforehand.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's not always easiest to hear because I'm listening to a recording. I'm not seeing any lips move.
Hmm.
And for me, I see having those other 2 courses as with no barriers as an amazing success. Like out of there's 1 course out of 3 that is more of a challenge. So that means when I'm doing my work, I'm putting more energy into that course.
Yeah.
And does that mean that sometimes the other 2 courses, they get to take a little bit of a back burner? Yeah,
Yeah.
but I also think that for me, always being like very sharp and intelligent in that way of being able to retain information in the way I do, if I didn't have that, it would be a major struggle. I wouldn't be able to put those 2 courses on the back burner and still be doing as well as I am.
Yeah.
So
And
I
can
Yeah.
I ask a
feel a lot
question?
of gratitude for
Have you
that.
contemplated for future
Mhm.
taking sign language or anything like that for the future?
Yeah, funnily enough, it was a mandatory thing I did in the 4th grade. So I started taking sign language, and I do know some sign from um,
I only
my
know one.
brother's journey
You
as
know,
well.
I don't think that one's appropriate.
You
Yeah,
with that one.
yeah. But it's something I have thought about, but I know my hearing loss it's not going to progress
Okay, now
there.
the other thing I wanted to ask you about, because one of my coworkers actually got a cochlear implant.
Yeah. So there's no surgical repair. I'm on my 3rd ENT now, and some of that's because I moved. Some of that, my first one has now retired.
Hmm.
The second one I saw, she was just more, she had a couple of babies, so she's left her practice. And now I'm on my 3rd one. And all 3, that's is their consecutive opinion that there is nothing surgical to be done, and that of my family doctor too, and that of the audiologist I've come across. So eventually it's going to be, strengthening those hearing aids, learning some other skills. It might be the fact that I need to have people wearing that microphone all the time. It might come to that, or like permanent use of subtitles. Um, so
Yeah.
I know, and I'm aware as it progresses, that's going to be a thing where I'm going to need to have
Yeah, because
multiple
I know my
microphones.
coworker. She when we had meetings, she had difficulty if we were all sitting around the table.
Yeah,
She needed to have a special phone, so that if there was like she's a treasurer, so when we're on the phone in a meeting, there may be somebody outside on the meeting as well. So
yeah,
we had to have a special phone so that she could focus.
yeah. You know what's interesting? They don't do it with cell phones yet. They still have the landline phones that you can buy.
Hmm.
How is that going to help me? How are the
Yeah.
I'm always like, how are the landline phone gonna help me?
Yeah.
And it just, they haven't caught up. The technology hasn't caught up. Even on
Ellie, I,
laptops, you can't use it.
yeah, I have an idea. Have you ever used hostel1.com for interacting with two people that don't speak the same language? Have you ever used it?
No, I haven't, but that's interesting.
Basically, what you do is you, let's per se, I speak Spanish and you speak English.
Mhm.
What we would do is we would pull up hostelworld.com and then we will set it to Spanish on the bottom and English on the right, on the left, on the top upper half, and we put the
Yeah.
phone in between us. So when you speak in English, it picks it up and translates it in Spanish so I can hear you. And so vice versa. So you can have that conversation with the phone sitting in between you. I wonder though, if that technology needs to translate to people that have hearing impairments so that they
Yeah.
can have their phone out and, just have that screen constantly going, maybe a higher power battery whereby, they could be talking to someone and just looking at their phone because they can actually talk and understand what you're saying. Do you know what I mean?
I do see what you mean. I know Google is working on something like that. Ever since they come out with the Google Glass, they had questions as to, what might they do for folks with hearing impairments, and there's projects in the works. That's not to say there isn't. They're just, it takes
They just
time.
don't currently exist.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Tell us about your speech impairment because I honestly don't know what I thought. I know you had a lisp and I don't really know what I thought. Like, do people misdiagnose you? Do they think you have something else? Because, this congenital, it's a congenital handicap. Is it a congenital, would you call it a congenital disease or?
Congenital
The
hearing
ENT I
loss.
saw recently does call it congenital, because even though I didn't know it was congenital, but I learned
Yes.
because
Yeah.
that, and that's the
So
thing.
is it a congenital disease or is it a congenital? Mhm.
Yeah.
So what do
So
people, when you speak, what?
yeah, it's interesting when I'm interacting with people who are in that profession or they have a family member, they know. They know right away. They're like, "Oh, my do you wear hearing aids? Oh, my friend had that. My cousin, my friend's niece, my daughter." So I'll have a lot of those kinds of conversations because it's a different pattern of speaking
Yeah,
than someone who just has a lisp.
yeah,
Because so for me, yes, I've done a lot of speech therapy to even get to this point. And when I talk or I have to listen to recordings of myself, I'm like, oh, it's so bad. Like I know it's,
No, it's not. It's not as bad as you think.
yeah, but we
Because,
do that
like I
to
said,
ourselves, don't we? We judge ourselves.
I heard a little lisp, but I also had a girlfriend growing up who had a cleft palate, who
Hmm.
had a lisp. So I wasn't sure. Do you have a cleft palate? I mean, not. I couldn't see one externally, but I wasn't sure. But I mean, I never really thought of it as far as hearing and how
Hmm.
hearing affects your speaking.
Yeah, I can't hear F's and T's, so it generates in our voices. So when you don't know what something is supposed to sound like,
Yeah.
um, how can you perform it? Like for me, I have no idea what a cricket sounds like. If you ask me to imitate a cricket, oh, I have a good story. I have a funny story, and it's very, very light. Um, grade 10 drama class, and I took drama. I took theater because I was like, this is not going to stop me. Um, we had to imitate animals, and she was just randomly going around, and someone would say an animal, and I could not remember what. I didn't know what noise an elephant made. I know it makes some kind of a trumpet noise, but I didn't know what a trumpet noise sounded like. I
Hmm.
just said roar, and everyone laughed, and I laughed, and I was so embarrassed, but I just like, I don't know what it sounds like. I've never heard an elephant. I mean, I've seen elephants in movies. I remember watching The Jungle Book growing up. I know they make a trumpet noise. I just don't know what a trumpet noise
What
yeah.
it
sounds.
sounds like, yes.
Yeah. And I laugh about it. Like I make fun of
Well, I'm
myself.
glad
Too
that you can.
funny. That is.
Yeah.
And so do you have people that ask if you, I mean, please don't be offended by me saying this. Do you have people that say, you know, is it Down syndrome? What is it? Do people like try to diagnose you because this impairment is not well known. I've never heard of it. This is the first time I'm hearing
Yeah.
about it. So do you find people
No,
that are
well,
trying to put you in a box?
um, a lot of the times I just get asked like, "Oh, where are you from? Like, where is your accent from?"
Mhm.
Because most
Ah,
people don't go. I think most people don't go around diagnosing people. I've definitely had people get really close to me, and like, so they can like look at my ear. Oh, yeah, that's another thing too. It's like people are so interested by hearing aids because mine are really invisible, quite invisible. They're not perfect. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, they're not as visible as they used to be.
no, but also it might help to get a bit of a chunkier one, or ones with heavier wires, depending, next time when I'm
Okay, so
need
you
hearing
think
aids.
people
It might
saw
not
it,
always be that way.
if people saw it, they would be more aware.
Yeah, and that's the thing, but when I do say it, I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm actually from here." How many times I've had to say I'm actually from here or I'm from Canada. I just have a hearing impairment that affects my speech. And most often I say that because the way I come across is very bold, intelligent, very sure of myself. So people are not really typically thinking that it's some other disability. They're just, where are you
okay.
from? Like, what accent is that? I've asked, been asked a lot, is English your first language? Or where did you grow up? Like a lot of those questions that are,
Well, that's nice because they know they sense that there's something different, but they don't know what.
yeah,
And it's kind of nice that they place it on the accent rather than anything else.
yeah.
So Alicia, let me ask you a funny question.
Hmm.
So when you're dating and your boyfriend whispers in your ear, that is like a no-no because your hearing aid acts up. You hear everything 10 times loud, and it's like, you are not seducing me here. You are not serenading me here. You are irritating me.
Yeah, don't whisper, don't do dirty talk. It's just not fun. And the partners I had in the past are just, they're aware. They understand that this is the case and it's not going to be fun to do certain activities.
Mhm.
And they get that. They know it would be preferable to just friends too. Like even when meeting new friends, sometimes like they'll just suggest like, "Hey, let's go do this," and I'm like, "That doesn't really sound that fun for me. How about we do this at this time?" Or
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a friend who really loves baseball, and when we go, we, we're not really talking. Like they know that they can text me and be like during the game and be like, or like things like, I want to go to the bathroom, like I'm going to the bathroom or I'm gonna go grab a drink.
Mhm.
Most of that, like, they kind of get right in front of you, but at the side at a baseball game, it
Oh, so technology has become your friend.
technology is my friend. I mean, it really it isn't because I mean, there's so many little hacks we can do. Like when I'm on a Zoom meeting with friends, what we because that's honestly been a great way to talk this time is I'll pull out a blank Google Slides, and that's why I have so much love for Google. Like I would never switch. Um, I never switch using them into like Microsoft for PowerPoint because Google Slides has a built-in feature that you can turn on the captions. And so I can put up a blank slide, really minimize it, and all the captions will come up as we're talking. And
Okay.
Wow.
sometimes I do that in meetings too. It's like, hey, do you mind? And
Sick.
I had one person like, you should create a slide with your logo on it for meetings so it looks like something you're just doing. And some
Yeah.
of my clients have actually really learned to love it because now
Yeah.
they're getting captions. And if I send them, sometimes I can, what, can you send me a recording of the meeting? I don't have to take notes now. The captions are there.
Mhm.
And
Wonderful.
people love that
I
too.
love
So this
that.
is interesting for
Wonderful.
me as somebody who hosts events
Mhm.
and will be doing virtual events. I'm wondering. if that's something that I should be thinking about in
Yeah, it's a great thing to
making
think
sure that
about.
it's captioning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen with virtual events putting up a picture of the person who's performing or putting up a image that represents their brand and all the subtitles are coming on. And I mean, if it is something instrumental, there's not much that you can do other than, making a slide that says it's an instrumental break. And some people who don't have the patience or don't want to use that energy, because that's what it is, it's mental energy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I know both of you talk about,
Far
like,
more tiring. Mental energy is far more tiring than physical energy.
yeah, that's the thing people don't realize. I am dead after a day of meeting. And
Yeah.
when I say dead, I mean, like, my head hurts. It
Yeah.
Mhm.
hurts. I want to go lie on the couch. Like, I have a couch in my office for that, for one of
Yeah.
those reasons.
Yeah. I
It's like
totally
when
understand
you go to
that.
the grocery store, the overstimulation of a grocery store.
No,
I like to go to the same drugstore and the same grocery store because when I go to a different one, like there's just too much overstimulation for me.
yeah,
I
I,
know in my grocery store where things are, so
mhm,
I can just go directly there. But
yeah,
when I go to a different grocery store, because somebody who's taking me wants to go somewhere else,
yeah,
it's very challenging for me because I'm like, my eyes are everywhere. Like, this is
yeah,
Yeah.
too much to see.
um, yeah. And the same goes, I really like going to Food Basics over No Frills. And I mean, okay, the Food Basics is really close. Actually, no, the closest grocery store to my house is Foodland. But the Foodland is always really busy, especially in the summer, because it's right by the river, and you get kids and high school students and families and people from out of town. It's loud. And then the No
Mm,
Frills is right in the main stretch. I live in Niagara Falls, for folks who don't know, so I'm out of the Hamilton area, and it's
mm,
right on the main stretch. So it's way too loud. It's always busy no matter what time you go. When I go to Food Basics in the middle of the day, so if I take an hour off because running a business, my time is my own.
Yeah.
If I go at like 2 in the afternoon or 1 in the afternoon, it's quiet. No one's there. I
yeah.
can
Yeah.
shop around. I can get it done without that noise. And I actively look for the cashiers that I that I know I can hear.
Yeah, familiar with.
That
Yes.
I'm familiar with, whose voices I easily can recognize, that I can process a little bit faster. Um, so I, yeah,
That's wonderful. Alicia, you have been successful. You have weathered this handicap really well.
Yeah,
There was a large part of your life where you didn't even know that there was something that
different.
could that not only that there was something wrong, but that you could have help. And so this not knowing because you were born with it is very, very difficult. And I am so sorry that that has happened to you, but you've been quite successful. You've gone through primary school, you've gone through middle school, high school. Tell us of your success. Tell us of all your accomplishments, because you have your own business, even with this handicap and even in COVID, you started your own business. So tell us about you
yeah.
and
So
walk us through your life. Yeah.
yeah. So for me, early elementary school, everything was quite normal. I mean, I got good grades. I was a good reader. I could write really well. The rest of the subjects, okay, I had to work a little bit harder, but still got very good grades. And then by the time I was 11 years of age, honestly, a little bit before that, in the fifth grade, I joined choir because didn't use school, and I just really wanted to make friends. And
Wow, so you can sing too?
I can't think. I mean, I think but back then I could.
Me either.
Back then I could, and it was a little bit better, and I still had my lisp. And it's interesting when you sing your lisp isn't at present. So I did that for myself to build some confidence.
Okay.
And by 11, I auditioned for the school musical. So our musical with Grace, and I was the youngest cast member, playing the oldest character. So I played Miss Lynch. If people remember Grace, the principal who um, wears kind of like that polka dot dress and is always like trying
Mm.
at the morning announcement. So that was my character, and I began to get a lot of confidence. Um, at that age too, I started participating in conferences, so Eco League. Together We're Better, all these amazing growth opportunities. And then grade 7, I kind of continued my journey. I kept trying all these different instruments because they were so hard because I couldn't hear what I was playing, obviously. Eventually settled into playing the saxophone. And in the 8th grade, I won the Celebrating Student Success Award, which is only given to a
Wow.
very limited number of students within the region. And I was nominated by my teacher and uh,
Wow.
one of the teachers who was in charge of the diversity program. And
Wow.
it was a huge opportunity. And what I'd actually done is I created an autism acceptance program and went round to all the different schools. Sorry, not different schools, but all the different classes. So I was granted a day off class. I spoke at every single assembly, every single Character Matters assembly about different topics, about courage, about fairness, respect, did
Wow.
poetry. I was on the student council. Um,
Wow.
and then in high school, I continued that. I was president of the Equity and Diversity Club. I
Wow.
was involved again doing the same work with folks with autism. I was a student teacher. I got accepted into the gifted program because little did I know, I also learned differently and was gifted and
Hmm.
didn't learn that until I had a 9th grade teacher who was also a psychologist. And I got really sick actually in the 11th grade with low sodium.
Oh
So
no.
I was fainting all the time, and my vice principal told me, "You can't be here. You can't be in school." And this was also around the same time as learning about my hearing impairment too. So I had two things going on. And I was fainting, and it was scary, and it was terrifying. And at that age, kids can, even though they're not kids, people can still be really cruel. And that
Yeah.
vice principal was one of them. And in my last year of high school, I switched to an art school and thought, well, I'll just keep my head low. I'll just, try not to faint. And if I faint, I have a very lovely vice principal who was just such a great person for me. Because when I fainted, instead of sending me to the hospital, we already knew what was wrong. He let me
Yeah.
sit in his office. He gave me juice and then
Wonderful.
said, and talked
Wonderful.
to me like I was a human and really cared and was genuinely
That's
compassionate.
great.
Um, so that helped a lot. But I got back into doing theater again. And then when I went to college, because I was so sick, I didn't get all the time. I was not only finishing grade 11 in grade 12, so a whole semester, so 4 courses. I was
Yes.
doing 4 courses plus all of grade 12. So I didn't
Wow.
have enough time to get all those university level courses because
Yeah.
it just wasn't enough. So I went to college and got my college certificate in tourism services management. And that's a field where you're talking a lot. And I was
Yeah.
actually a tour guide um, over the summer, worked in ticket sales, and decided to pursue. One of my teachers recommended me to pursue a degree in international hospitality management. I went to PI, had a terrible time, personally, professionally, but got to do a
Well, I
really,
mean, because people in different provinces have
Yeah.
very different accents.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah, that was the biggest thing. The first day I got there, everyone was asking me where I was from, um, because in PEI, the first thing they say is, "Who's your father?" That's the first thing, because people go in family generations, most folks have the same name. But what I did, I mean, I actually ended up working for the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and I was on the phones all the time. I was doing volunteer recruitment and helping with the February canvassing and really worked myself. And although this wasn't my field at the time, I became the fundraising administrative assistant.
Wow.
And yeah, I thought, well, I'm not doing anything in hospitality or tourism. I've wasted my whole life. I got to go do it. Um,
Yeah.
moved to the UK and, really realized this hospitality field just wasn't what I was passionate about. I missed my nonprofit work. Um, and then when I came back here to Canada, to Ontario, I got back to the nonprofit field, but couldn't find something that was a stable job. And I was so frustrated that I ended up working in
Yeah.
financial services. And or when you're sometimes working with financial services, the hours are demanding. They can really be detrimental to your mental health, and people aren't always the kindest, and it was definitely a rough experience. So I took a lot of time to work on myself, and even went back to speech therapy after that experience was over, and found that to be really helpful. And yeah, when I started my business, it was actually because I knew I wanted to get back into advocacy, and I'd done some training to be a peer support worker, and I completed that, and I'd learned a very specific style of medication that I could teach clients, and really delved in to this. And then my business started because I was asked to do a speaking engagement, and I was asked to be on a panel at Ryerson University, and
Wonderful.
I did two speaking engagements at the start of February, and now I'm running a really successful mental health education business for
One
families. And a lot of the work that folks see me do on the technical side is actually what helps me offer the families I serve at a low cost. Because I know for parents who have children with disabilities, it's not always affordable. When
yeah.
you're a family of four or six, or a family of four, and then you know an illness happens or something sudden or unexpected happens, you
Mhm.
deserve to have a peer. You deserve to have someone that you can see, who can give you the resources, who can connect you, who can provide you with medication support. And now it's grown so much, and there's so much more of me that could be offered. We do so much advocacy work and charitable work. I'm nearly completing my training to be a certified parenting mindfulness
Okay, so
provider,
I'm gonna
as
ask
well
you
as
a question.
yeah.
So, what do you do when you're not working?
What do I do when I'm
You are
not
like working
working?
24/7, girl.
Yeah, so I work a lot. Let me
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I do work a lot, and I love what I do. I'm also doing a couple of continuing education courses, medical terminology being one of them, and a couple of others in childhood development. And what so when I'm not studying,
When
when I'm
you're
not working,
resting, what do you
when
do
I'm
when you're
resting,
resting?
I am resting. Like, I am lying there, I meditate, I do yoga. Behind my background here, there's a yoga mat. Um, I draw, I paint, I do a lot of creative things, and I really didn't want my music journey to stop. So when I
Yeah.
started my business, I bought a keyboard, and I love it. And I'm not even sure if I can hear. I just know. And with a keyboard, you can feel the way your fingers move. You can
Yeah.
see yourself picking up the way your hands are supposed to feel. So that really helps me. And I mean, yeah, I spent a lot of time really with talking with my friends, giving like some of those really important mutual relationships I have in my life that I love keeping. So usually when I'm done work, I'm either
Wonderful.
connecting with someone, or I'm connecting with my inner self. Self-care is like the number one in my game.
Yeah, good. That's wonderful. Alicia, tell us about your business. Tell us, we're running out of time,
Mhm.
but I want our viewers to know the name of your business, what the services they offer, so that they can tap your shoulder and say, look it, I need help for my child.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. If there's a picture you can show us, that sort of thing, please do.
Yeah, so because I'm here, it's usually me who's doing this, folks. So it's keeping tabs on time or getting things up. So
EAT Innovation.
yes, so my business is EH Innovation. I can stop my video a second and show everyone. That's my little logo there. Um,
Wonderful.
so folks, what I have to offer is currently peer support. So that's one-on-one mutual exchange, where we're able to give you techniques in dialectical behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. We also incorporate music and art therapy, EDIT practices, solution focus based, helping you really with your goals and what you
Yeah.
want to achieve for a family. And then we
Mhm.
also have educational consults. And those are a little different because sometimes when we first get diagnosed, there's no information there.
Mhm.
Doctors ignore you. You can't find the right book. So
Yeah.
my background working and volunteering at Ron Joyce Children's Health Center and
Mhm.
helping out in family resources really taught me the value of how to get people what they need. So an educational consult, that's where I'll connect you with resources. That's where we'll go through the literature that's available, help answer any of those questions that you don't understand or are just blowing your mind or feel too overwhelming. So there's that aspect. And then with corporate clients, we are always available to help with accessibility, community management, building and filling up things like your tech support, or helping with aspects where you're feeling unsure or uncertain or don't know how to adapt. Because I get it. That can be super stressful. And
Yeah.
there's 2 others on my team as well,
Mhm.
who are also there. So it's just something that, I can't do. I have 2 other amazing women behind me who are lovely and supportive. And as well,
Mhm.
if people have a charity or something they're trying to start that's nonprofit or social enterprise,
Mhm.
I'm always wanting to be a huge help with that. We've worked on so many projects.
Well, I cannot say how much I'm appreciative of your services. I trust you.
Yeah.
I trust that when
Yeah.
when you're here, it's like I feel safe and calm. Because I know Alicia's got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I learned that on the weekend when I had another event and you were at a conference and we're not able to be there. And I had somebody else do it that I did not trust. And
Yeah.
it was so stressful for me. I swear I drank a bottle of wine while I was doing it.
It's great to be seen as a
Ah,
trusted advisor. It really does make me feel
Alicia, I guess what we're trying to say is that you're excellent at what you do.
thank you.
You are up there with the experts. We love what you do. We
Yes.
think
And we're
I
both okay.
personally have never thought of you as having a handicap. I've always thought
No,
you
me
just have
either.
a list. Thank you for joining our show today. Thank you for talking to us. Thank you for being vulnerable, because these are things that, it's hard to talk about, but thank you for being open and honest. And thanks for all the advice. I really hope that our viewers not only learn from this show on how to help their children when there's things they don't understand, but I hope employers understand. I hope educators understand. And I hope the general community understands that there is help out there. Don't let it slide. If there's something different about a child or an employee or a student, take the time to investigate and ask, how can we help you be better at what you do? Because it's very important. If we're going to help each other to be better at who we are, it's very important to ask that question: how can I help you be better at what you do? So thanks for joining our show.
Thank you for having me. And I'll post all my links below, and then all of your
Wonderful.
usual links will be there.
Yeah, thank
That's
you
great.
so very much.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Goodbye.
All right, bye bye.
Bye, everyone.